What is going on, everybody? Welcome to the Run Pure Sports Morning Show. It's Monday. We're back. We're talking some MLB today, and we're running it back because we want Hoop to run it back this Friday because he's done it 2 weeks in a row. Won 100K, goes to sleep on Friday night, wakes up with a bunch of money in his pocket. Hoop, how is it going? Obviously, you had a great weekend and a good start to the MLB season for you.
Yeah, MLB has been going phenomenally well. And actually this afternoon, me, Tambo, and JSU are going to record a little video, 2 p.m. Eastern will be posted here on the YouTube channel. It's similar to the one we did for golf. We're going to do it for MLB and just kind of, general conversations about MLB DFS. And yeah, out of the gates, it's been a great start. JSU had his big win as well. So it's going to be me, him, and Tambo, kind of made the transition over to MLB from NBA. I mean, our team obviously is very strong in all areas. We kind of dedicated some guys to the NBA side of things, and I went for the MLB side, and it's worked out quite well. Yes, I'm still following the playoffs, but more from an entertainment and betting standpoint, although my bets are not doing very well because, as we talked about on this very show, I was very invested in the Nets winning the first round matchup with the Celtics, and that is not going to happen. They're down 3-0. So that part of it's not going good. But yes, this is the second Friday in a row where hit the sheets early and woke up to a big win. Last Friday, my son had a baseball tournament, which we talked about early Saturday morning. So I had to go to bed and, really couldn't stay up to watch. And then this Friday, actually, my brother got married this weekend. So I had a lot going on Friday. Built these teams relatively quickly, didn't really pay attention to the baseball slate. After many drinks, I came back to the hotel room and hit the pillow and fell right asleep and woke up to this nice win, which it was a late push by a lot of Dodgers guys, which is kind of ironic because the win from 2 weeks ago was a Dodgers team as well. So maybe the Dodgers are the answer. I am hoping that I'll be back next Monday with another Friday win. That would be great. I mean, that might be a permanent fixture here on Mondays for you, so make it easy to have a guest. Mini Hoop, just lock them in Monday mornings.
Yeah, listen, I'm down. Makes it easy on me. You'll take the money too. If we can plan for that every week, that works for me. Speaking of the show schedule this week, I can kind of do a quick rundown for the people so they kind of know what to expect. So Tuesday, I'm bringing in Bruce. He's our college football guy. We're going to talk the NFL draft a little bit. I've already made a couple wagers on the draft. So, some of those draft props, if we could talk some betting, but we're just going to kind of talk about teams, talk about some of the players, probably position players, obviously tough to give like lineman breakdowns and stuff, but we'll talk about it. We watched a lot of college football DFS, me and Bruce. So we're going to talk about that and kind of just, discuss with you guys in the chat. I mean, you guys love football, so can't wait to do that. Wednesday, I'm going to hop on here with Hoop, and we're going to do a player pool breakdown of golf. We're just going to build my player pool on air. Maybe I'll make some tweaks like when I get off, like at night, if there's something big, but I'm going to keep it like pretty much what we build on here. So we'll do that with SaberSim. Will be a really good time. Thursday, day baseball with DC. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Obviously, you guys always love showing up for day baseball. Who doesn't like sweating day baseball, going into some NBA playoffs and some, main slate baseball also. So you'll have an all day sweat. We'll be there with that. And then Friday, after the draft, we'll do JSU's going to hop on. He knows these teams really well. Big T always makes fun of them for, talking about teams forever. Well, the floor will be his. We'll talk about all different teams, what they drafted, how they look. So should be a fun week. If you guys could please subscribe to the video, helps us out a ton. We'd appreciate it a lot. Hoop, any thoughts here before we kind of dive in and review this? Do you want to talk about the Nets? We could talk about that because the Nets are looking pretty fraudulent. At least I'm noticing.
Gotta bail at this point. I mean, that game one. I mean, it's just crazy how one game can really dictate the direction of a series. I mean, you have to imagine if they win that game that came right down to the end, the series is completely different. With Durant and Kyrie, you can just tell they're done. So probably a sweep. Maybe they get amped up to get a win and avoid the sweep, but it's not going to end well for them. I was wrong. Put some money on it. It was my biggest position for round one, but luckily these MLB wins were able to offset those losses. So we keep pumping. It's just going to continue to be a busy time. I mean, MLB, multiple slates like you talked about. We have some day baseball this week. I believe the Thursday slate looked really good. We got the main MLB slates, massive contest in NBA. golf. It's a down event. I believe it's a Mexico Open, but John Rahm's in it. And, the prize pools remain consistent for PGA DFS, very big. We got UFC obviously this weekend. We had NASCAR yesterday, more NASCAR. Just it never stops. We just keep working, building some winners here, and it's week to week thing, day to day thing, and we're gonna keep at it. So a lot to be excited for this week.
Yeah, we're gonna review hoops lineup, then we're gonna talk MLB hoop. Though, have you seen the golf odds yet? Have you seen them?
Yeah, Rahm is like 4-1 or something, or 5-1,
or like 5-1. It's insane.
Yeah, shortest number I've ever seen on just one player for a full
Cameron
field.
Tringale's 22-1 on DK, which is really strange. Like, I mean, not obviously it's not the best field, but it'll be interesting. We'll talk about it. I'm sure the Ron ownership will be really interesting as well. So that's something we'll talk about a little bit more on Wednesday. Let's talk about this team. Let's see first this guy. You got you're at the top, obviously, Hoop 2410, and then Keep Calm and Tilt On. He had the same exact team as you. So I was wondering if there was anything that was changed, maybe like a 2v2, and it just happened to be the same score, but it's identical team. So interesting that you guys fell on the same thing, though. Verlander was 56%. So seemed like the chalk pitcher, right? And typically when you have the chalk pitcher like that, some guys don't play him, some play him, and they fall in that range. Typically, you don't get like 80%. You get in between like 40 and 60%. So Verlander definitely got a lot of ownership. Feels like looking at some of these Braves prices, and these Braves prices have been bad. You kind of just took advantage of that and then jammed in one of like the best stacks on the slate. And then you also took probably one of like the better value plays, a one-hole hitter in Washington. I'm sure it was a lefty on the mound too. 2.4K. You took him and he got that home run. So overall, pretty nice team. It was a 5-2-1 stack, which those 5-2-1s, they're definitely good. When people always ask me, I got some DMs about this hoop. They said, hey, is it a 5-man stack with like 3 1-offs? Is it a 5-2-1 or a 5-3? What is the best approach? I think every slate is different. My opinion is just make sure you're 5-man stacking. Like, I don't think whichever one you do is a problem. I don't think there's one that's normally better than the other. I just think it's all slate dependent, depending on your build and what you want to put together, but just make sure you're 5-man stacking. We talked a little bit about, you could probably get away with the 4-man stack here and there, probably on shorter slates, but overall, do you agree 5-man stack is just the way to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like you said, it is slate to slate, but for the most part, it's 5-man stacks. I don't mind doing 4-4s. I mean, if I know there's 2 teams that I really like, and that's the only way I can make it work with the salaries, or if I have a strong lean on a pitcher and I know I want a certain pitcher in my lineups, that's when things can get a little bit different. I think when I built these teams on Friday night, I believe I played like 5 or 6 pitchers. So I had a lot of flexibility at pitcher. The Dodgers, I built these teams quick too. I was kind of on the fly making these teams. I didn't put a lot into it. And, I stacked the Dodgers. I didn't think they'd be super highly owned. It was a weird slate. I remember on Friday, nothing stood out from a offensive standpoint. Like, there wasn't a team total that was at 5.5 or 6. A lot of team totals around like 4.5 and 4. So I thought everything would get spread out, and that was the case. And I knew I wanted some Dodgers exposure, and I was able to get Freddie Freeman, Muncy, Turner, both Turners, Betts, all around 10% or lower in some cases. Like Muncy was 10, Mookie Betts was 10, and the key to the slate was obviously Mookie Betts, who had 39 fantasy points. You probably needed Mookie Betts to win. So a lot of the other stuff really didn't matter. I had Muncy and Betts. And Slater obviously hit that home run, but, I played the cheap Braves guys. I mean, DraftKings continues to put these guys at just a poor price. Like, they really didn't do all that much. I got 7 points from Arnaud and 2 from Ozuna. And like you said, like, I could have gone 5 and then 1-1-1 and just had just as much success here opposed to the 5-2-1, because my 2 didn't do anything. Arnaud and Ozuna got me 7 total points. My pitchers really didn't do much. Either. I mean, Verlander, highest owned guy, only got 14 fantasy points, and then Flexen, obviously, he was 6K and got 24. So that part is nice. The key was playing these Dodgers guys, and there are a lot of teams close behind that. I'm just pulling this up. So 3rd place was the Dodgers.
Yeah, I'm looking at them too. I saw the one thing about that Dodgers team in 3rd place I noticed, and this maybe like helped you out too, is like Will Smith, like doing really bad at the catcher position while you just punted it, right? He only got 2, and people spent so much salary on Will Smith. It was only 10%, but to help differentiate you from those Dodger stacks. And also a lot of those Dodger stacks, if they ended up going like Will Smith, Muncy, Turner, all those studs, like they maybe couldn't have afforded the 9.9% rookie bets, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was very close. I mean, you go down to like, the 17th place team was only 11 points behind me. So, I mean, you're talking, a ton of guys that were right there to beat me in this contest. It wasn't a runaway win. That's for sure. And it is kind of ironic that this guy had the exact same team as me. Obviously he stacked the Dodgers, and I guess the one thing here, this Dodgers lineup, I mean, it's just the 1 through 5 hitters. So a lot of times people do that. We talk about it on the show. You shouldn't do that. And honestly, if I was more focused on building teams Friday, I probably wouldn't have played just the 1 through 5, but I was building teams in a hurry, had the rehearsal dinner for my brother's wedding. I knew I only had limited time to build my team. So, I mean, it probably worked to my benefit, because I don't think I would have done a full 1 through 5 stack, just because, we talk about it. You need to kind of get different in your stacks. But I will say this was a pretty low owned stack overall for being the Dodgers. Looks like the cumulative ownership was on average like around 10% for all these guys. Getting the Dodgers at 10% on a slate where there isn't any standout offenses, like that's a good number. Like that's a really good number. So yeah, in hindsight, it probably wasn't the worst plan going 1 through 5, but if I had more time to focus on the teams, I probably wouldn't have gone 1 through 5. And then I knew I wanted a lot of Verlander, and I felt fine with flex and cheap. So I needed some cheap bats, and the Braves provided that. And then Slater was only 2.4, really strong play on the slate. So I mean, obviously happy with the result, but probably could have built this team a little bit better if I had more time.
Yeah, well, you can't complain about what you got. I think, obviously still a good team. I want to talk about a couple guys in the top 10 that I noticed was like just interesting things as I just kind of click through, right? When you're like reviewing teams, just reviewing slates, there are interesting things to notice. So like the Whistles Go Woo has Aaron Judge in there. Aaron Judge hit 2 home runs, 32 DK points, and you didn't even have him on the winning team, right? There's all those people all the time. They're like, no Judge, no money, right? Like, it's like kind of crazy. I mean,
he had Franco too. Franco hit 2 bombs. I didn't have Franco. So, I mean, it was a pretty weird slate where, and that is the thing. Like people tilt like way too early. So if the Yankees game was early and Judge hit 2 home runs, you're probably thinking, all right, I can't win now if I don't have Judge. And that may have been the case in some of the larger field stuff. You probably needed Judge and Betts and Franco, but if you're playing in more single entry stuff or 3 max stuff, more margin for error. Like you don't necessarily need to have those guys that are quick out of the gates hitting, a home run or 2 home runs. That's where baseball, it's hard to not tilt if guys hit home runs and you don't have them, but it's possible to still win. And another thing I like about baseball, like you don't need to have, 30 fantasy points from every position. Like you can absorb some lower scores and still do well. So a bigger margin for error.
Yeah. So this is why I hate UFC, Hoop, because the first fight's over and then I'm out. Like it's just, this is why I hate UFC. You literally,
I was in the same boat. I did terrible on the new UFC slate. You don't have the guy that scores 126. You are done at that point. Like it doesn't matter what contest you're in, you are done. It can be tilting. I mean, and it's like a prolonged process too, because then you gotta, you have all these fights and there's time in between. The UFC sweats can be very painful. That's for sure.
Yeah. The thing I like about like basketball, like for instance, like Gary Trent goes for like 37 the other day, right? At 50%, you can make it up. Patrick Beverly can get 34 at the same price. Of course, like, yes, you want the Gary Trent score, but there are guys that can make up the scores, right? That's the thing. So that is why I hate UFC. That's my rant. Title's not here to, argue with me. So there we go. Rant over. One more guy I want to mention, Brick 75 built a very similar team to you actually. And man, he got like kind of a rough pitching performance from Suarez compared to some of the other ones. He only finished 6 points back and had a very similar stack. He had D'Arnaud, Swanson, Ozuna, and then he had Slater. And then I guess he went, actually, no, his was a Braves. I'm so confused because I see Freddie Freeman in there. So it's like, and he's got the Braves uniform on. So he has D'Arnaud, who's like a Brave.
4-3-1. 4-3-1 stack here.
Which like, hey, this could have easily gotten home and been the winner, right? Like we talked about it, how like, I do think the 4-mans can work. I think typically you wanted to do 5-mans. Do you like know, like, can you think of specific reasons of like when the 4-3-1s work? I think like in my head, I'm thinking it probably works best when like you're stuck kind of punting positions, right? Like when you have to go down at spots, like kind of like with these Braves, D'Arnaud is only 2-2. Swanson's only 2-5. Like those are just like two like pure on punts. And in order to get in Freddie Freeman, Max Muncy, I guess he has Albies also. So I don't know. It just seems, I don't know how to make the 4-3.
So he's like, a guy, you know, for sure that he's getting his teams from an optimizer. Like he's not hand building teams. We know his style of play. He's definitely getting his from an optimizer. This is where honestly in baseball, I think if you can hand build in certain situations, you have an edge. So he's probably looking at more ownership percentages opposed to like what he's actually getting in his stack. And I'm guessing he probably would have preferred a full 5-man stack, but the optimizer gave him something different.
But I'm surprised that someone who uses an optimizer had a 4-3, right? Like that's like, so I'll just look at his, like he might have more teams in here that I can't see, but let's look at the ones down here. So this one, I'm curious to see what his other teams were. So I see
3 teams in this.
1, 2, 3, 4. This is a 5-man Marlins with 2. So this is a 5-2-1. And then this was
there's some bad squads. Holy shit.
Yeah. The ownership percentages are low, which is nice, but
yeah. Is that Mets and Marlins on the other two?
Well, so this one was Mets. See, so they were all 5. So it's funny. The 2 5-mans were like, obviously like every slate changes, doesn't matter. But the 2 5-mans were actually terrible. And the 4-man was the one that got it done. And the chalkier 4-man is the one that got it done.
I got some bad news for you.
Yeah, I just saw titles in the chat.
Mr. Title Town's lurking. He said he's like Big T. He's always lurking. You can't get anything by Title.
I know. Title, I'll need some help on. Let me go look. I have tickets. What's the UFC card? I'll definitely be playing that one, and I'll be complaining about it.
Pay-per-view. It's May 7th, I believe.
May 7th.
Really,
I'll
really
be complaining about that. Who's on that card? Do we know?
It's Oliveira and Gaethje. It's a really good card. I can't remember the Rose girl is fighting, I believe. It's a very strong card. Title's
I'll be playing that.
Appealing to it. I guarantee Title's already jerked off to that card. No doubt about it.
All right. Well, he's got the poster. He's got the UFC. Was it? Is it whatever 74 or whatever? You know, he's got the poster on the ceiling looking up at. It's definitely not a card that I'm. I like watching the mains, but I'm not dying to play UFC DFS. But hey, you guys like playing that more. Maybe I'll ship here soon. Who knows? But we'll have to see. That'll be my next chance to get the job done because I'll be playing. Because I got tickets and I keep getting tickets through NBA. I'll tell you this: like some of those like tickets are overlaying right now. So get in on those. Don't miss out on that. Look right before lock. NBA's been good to me for the playoffs, so I'm going to keep firing away on that. Hoop, any final thoughts here on your win? Like again, classic 5-2-1. Think it was a really good team, flexing 11%. And I'm surprised. I remember back to that slate. I'm surprised he was only 11%.
Yeah.
He had a pretty good projection when I looked. I remember. I don't know. I know you said you didn't look as closely that day. You were kind of busy doing stuff. Are you surprised at the flex in ownership? Because we had
him pegged on the cash chart. I believe. I don't know if it's you or Title that did the FanDuel. We had him tagged as a FanDuel like core play. So that obviously.
I think it was me. I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, so that obviously worked out. I thought he was a strong play. I mean, I played him way over this percentage, but I do think people are still hesitant to go ahead and play these cheap pitchers. Overall, I think they are, regardless of who they are. People are hesitant to do it because right now there's enough cheap bats every slate now. I mean, there's a lot of, the Dodgers have been free for basically a week. So people are willing to go cheaper at the bats just to lock in the perceived security of the top end pitchers, but there really hasn't been a ton of security at the top, to be honest. And that will change, obviously, as the season goes on. I mean, early on, the starting pitching is always a little bit risky, but you're already starting to see the pitch counts come up for a lot of these guys. The performances, Garrett Cole finally pitched well yesterday. So, it does shift a little bit, but early on, for me personally, I'm fine going cheap. I played a ton of Flux, and I thought he was a phenomenal play. And obviously, it's easy to say that in hindsight because he was 6K and scored 24 fantasy points. But, I personally felt fine doing it.
And one thing I'm just thinking of when you kind of think about like the pitching right now and how it's easier to pitch in this league, right? Because of how the balls have changed. Like that's like, hey, let's say me and Title, we're going to play hoops one-on-one. Since you're lurking, Title, let's talk. So we're going to play one-on-one, but we decided to tell Title that the hoop is going to be bigger now. It's going to be a little easier to score. Well, then I got a better chance, right? Like the worst player has a better chance of getting the job done. So that's why these cheap pitchers could be worth it. And it's a little bit harder. You want to get the Aaron Judges in your lineup that can double homer. You want to get Wander Franco. You want Mookie Betts. You want Max Muncy. I'd be curious. One thing I would love to like see right now, and I wish if I could somehow have someone create this, and if you know watching and can create this, let me know how much percentage of the fantasy points are coming from like guys above like 4 or 5 or 5K. Because I bet you it's a lot right now. And that would make me want to punt the pitcher more, especially when we think there's a mispricing with some of these guys like flexing. So that's something I'm going to think about when we kind of build out lineups in general going forward. And we can kind of talk about this slate and talk about the different spots right now. We'll talk about it for like 25 to like 30 minutes, just kind of give like a quick breakdown. Obviously, we got Hoop's going to do that show with JSU to kind of talk some more strategy in a little bit later. Then we'll have the Swing for the Fences show later as well. And we'll have the NBA show. So we got tons of shows coming up for you guys. So please subscribe to this video. It helps us out a ton. We would definitely appreciate it. Also want to mention, we got draft week coming up for NFL. So with that coming up, don't forget to get on those underdog drafts. If you are going to play some underdog, use the code RUNPURE, get you $100 deposit match bonus. Also make sure, hey, you don't have to be a member at Run Pure Sports to do that. If you're someone watching this for free and you're on underdog, just go use it. Run Pure is the code, $100 match deposit bonus. Use that right now. Hoop. Let's talk about this slate, though. I will say the one thing I do like about it, it's not a core slate. That's like the first thing I always look at. Is it a core slate? Okay, cool. If it's not, that gets me more excited about the slate. So no cores. Let's talk about the pitching real quick first, I guess we can go through just to see what we got. Because we just kind of mentioned it real quick, Hoop. Like, we think that the pitching right now is, I think it's somewhere where you can, if you got like that really good guy at the top, I don't mind grabbing him. But punting the position is definitely not a bad way to go. So let's see if there's any guys like a Flexens.
It's a little bit different. I mean, when you first pull up this slate, I mean, it doesn't fit really all that well to what we're talking about. Number one, because it's a smaller slate. I mean, what is it? Only like 6, 7 games tonight. So it's a smaller slate to start with. So
7 games and Hoop, it starts earlier. Let's call that out. It's a 6:10 start. So we'll have the 4:45 MLB Swing for the Fences show. And also on top of that, like make sure, not to forget that, right? Like don't act like you can just show up at your computer an hour before lock and get your stuff done. You got to show up a little bit earlier today.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. So hour before. I think FanDuel kept it the same, I want to say. So I think it's a staggered. So FanDuel's main slate, there starts at 7 Eastern, then DK's at 6 Eastern, so a little staggered start.
So they kicked which games they kick off? They kicked off the first 2, right? Colorado, Philly,
so it's
and
a really
San Francisco,
small.
Milwaukee.
Yeah, so they did it early only for those 6 Eastern games. So it's only a 5-game slate on FanDuel, so a little bit different, obviously. But when you look at the pitchers, it's kind of loaded at the top. I mean, Corbin Burns bounced back, really strong start last time out. He went 7 innings against Pittsburgh. So back-to-back very good starts. Now, this is a tougher matchup against the Giants, but man, we know how it is right now. I mean, these pitchers have the upper hand, and I think you can obviously get it done. And then you have Max Scherzer at 9.3 for Scherzer. Seems like a cheap price tag. It is. I mean, he hasn't been out to the best start, but 6 innings, 5 innings, 6 strikeouts, 7 strikeouts on a smaller slate. Looking to him is fine. Bieber at 9.6K, I think is a strong option. Then after that, it kind of drops off quite a bit. We have Kyle Gibson, who really strong start in that first one, but then a couple not so great starts, but one wasn't Coors, so we can give him the free pass there. So I think he's obviously an interesting option tonight. Gets a really good matchup here.
He gets the Rockies back-to-back, though. What do you think of that sometimes? Like when the team, because this is like one thing that we sometimes see is like you play the one team, then you play them again. Do you ever think that like plays into things where you don't love the pitcher the next time? You think the hitters get the edge, or
I'm
is it the other way?
Too worried about that because that first one was in Coors and pitches do different things in Coors. Now he's at home, big favorite here. So almost have to give him the free pass just because we don't have a ton of options. Then the interesting one is going to be Jose Barrios. I mean, we know this guy in the past. Has been a solid pitcher, rough start out of the gate, got rocked by Texas, bounced back with a pretty good performance against the Yankees, 5 innings, 3 earned runs, and then faced Boston. So another situation where he's facing the same team back to back, and his best start of the season, 6 innings, 6 Ks, 21 fantasy points. He's dirt cheap at 5.5K. He's probably going to have a K prop, I'd assume, right around 5 today. So, I mean, a 5.5K pitcher with a K prop. Oh, I do want to pull that up. I'm just guessing that it's probably around 5. Let's see. It is. Do they have one out for him? Yeah, 5.5 with the juice on the over. So he's going to be very popular today at 5.5K. So he's 5.5K. K prop is 5.5, and then it's juice. The juice is, minus 120. So projected to even go over that. He's going to be very popular today at 5.5K. He's the guy that people are going to go to save the salary. A guy that I'm probably just going to be off, who just has not been great this year, is Walker Buehler. I mean, eventually I think he gets it going, but literally just we haven't seen anything, and, hasn't gone more than 5 2/3. Dodgers are always going to be cautious with their pitchers. He's priced in that upper tier. I'll be fine just staying off him. So we do have some options. I think the interesting thing is what you do with Barrios, 5.5K, which is clearly the cheapest price he's been in a while, projected for over 5.5 strikeouts. That's just too cheap of a price tag. Curious to see how owned he ends up getting on the slate.
Yeah, I'm curious to see as well, because he's not a name he definitely has a name behind him, right? Yeah. That people will be like, okay, it's Jose Barrios, but he can definitely get blown up, and it is Boston, right? Like he is attacking Boston is sometimes like a riskier idea. It is a pretty low total for Boston, though. It's below 4. So and it's in Toronto. So that'll be interesting.
He's a big favorite. Well, not big favorite. He's minus 130. So a slight favorite as well. So, I mean, he's going to get the ownership today. There's no way. If you want the bats. I mean, but, I guess the other thing is there's not a ton of bats on the slate. I mean, it's another slate where, the Dodgers are hovering around 5. The Phillies are around 5 in terms of team run total. And after that, there's like nothing. So, it's a different slate. I mean, it's only a 7-game slate, so it's obviously a little unique.
Yeah. Do you know, I guess, so when you talk about that makes me want to grab like some of the bigger bats, right? Just like find a double home run here or there rather than like go like 2 mid-tier guys. Maybe I want to go grab that big bat. So here's a question for you. Is Texas, have they been having the roof open? I've definitely been playing more NBA than baseball. I know I've seen it a little bit, but has it changed the other way where it's always closed now?
I think it's been more open just because it's probably a cooler time in Texas. Obviously, in the summer months, so they'll probably close it up because it's 100 degrees and whatnot. So it seems like it's been really like 50-50 in terms of being open and closed. Just depends on the weather. So that does play a big factor, though. That is important because when that roof's closed, it favors pitchers. When it's open, it obviously favors the hitters because warm, humid temperatures. So that is something to keep an eye on. And honestly, that's a situation. They don't announce it usually like a few hours in advance, they'll announce it. And it does shift my interest in terms of the hitters, and especially on the 7-game slate it will too, because we don't have a lot of options. So,
and the slate locks earlier, right? So you're not going to have as much time maybe for that news. It might lock too early where people lock into let's say they lock into Corbin Burns, right? And with let's say they go Corbin Burns and they want to end up going Max Scherzer, and they're not able to jam in like another big team like that. Like just because they lock into Burns, that might mess them up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it really limits your flexibility at that point when you got 2 of the better pitchers, but not better, 2 of the more owned pitchers on the slate. You lock them in early, and you don't have that news. It could certainly play a role.
Yeah, I mean you got your Dodgers on the slate. I mean, you've been crushing it with the Dodgers. I will say that. I'm sure you're going to go back to them.
Yeah, almost have to.
Well, here's the thing, Hoop. This is an interesting talking point. Like we get to that point of the year where people start seeing like trends, and they pull up the DK game logs, and I got Merrill Kelly's game log up. I don't know if you've seen it, but he doesn't seem like a pitcher to target. And DC, which I don't know if you're on the show with him, maybe you can talk with him about it, but I'm sure you're just going to play the Dodgers and not care, which I don't blame you. Merrill Kelly, he's been good this year. I mean, if you look at some of the numbers from him, 5 strikeouts, 6, 7 strikeouts, and he's had almost 20 DK points in every game. Now his matchups were Washington, Houston, which is definitely they're definitely not an easy opponent. And then the Padres, which again, not an easy opponent. Yeah. And he's been really good. And DC kind of said it on the first show of the year. He said, hey, Merrill Kelly is going to be a guy to consider. He's 7.2K, and now he gets the Dodgers. And the Dodgers, even though they're mashing the ball, hey, I think it's interesting. Like, I don't think it's the right slate to play Merrill Kelly, but maybe it keeps the ownership down on the Dodgers and you just get them low owned again, like you were surprised the other day.
Yeah, I mean, that's my hope because I am going to play the Dodgers tonight. But on the other side of it, if you are a believer in Merrill Kelly, you get that double leverage because the Dodgers are going to be highly owned. And Merrill Kelly will likely be low owned. So if Merrill Kelly goes out there and, pitches, a similar game to what he's done in the first three, you get massive leverage on the field because the Dodgers bats are going to be very popular today. There's no way around it. I mean, we just don't have many options. So you get that double leverage situation. For me, I'm going to be on the Dodgers side, but DC is very good at identifying these pitchers that are on the verge of breaking out. And that could be the case here with Merrill Kelly. So it just sets up a very good leverage situation if you're a believer.
Oh yeah, definitely. We got in the chat, I want to mention a couple things. We got Reese's Collectibles. He's saying he loves listening to us every day. So love having you here. We got Kyle Brown saying he wants to play Burns and Scherzer, which is definitely a good route to do. One thing I kind of figure out when I run some stuff is I go on SaberSim, right? Lock in Burns, lock in Scherzer, and then just see what it does and see what team it kind of gets me. And then maybe I just won't lock those guys in and I'll prioritize the offense I want and see if I can somehow get them. Or let's say there's an offense I want, like if I'm on DK, just hand building, you put both those guys in and then click on the team and then kind of go from there. That's something that I definitely do to try and figure out if teams work. I'm sure you do kind of similar stuff. Clay Davis is wondering where JSU is. Well, JSU will be on the Up to Lock show. He's also doing a show at 2:00 with Hoop and Tambo, kind of giving like a, what is it, Hoop? Explain it to people. It's not like a first look for MLB. It's kind of like an MLB strategy show for the people, right?
Well, it's going to be general strategy. It's not going to be specific to any slate. We're just going to, talk through MLB DFS and even if you're a beginner, how you can start getting into it, different things you can do, different strategy points. It's part of the Trust the Process series that our producer came up with. So we're doing it for PGA. Today's going to be the MLB one. We'll have it for NBA playoffs. We'll do one. We're going to have it for every sport, but today's going to be the MLB one. It's going to be a basic focus on MLB DFS, walk you through some processes, talk about some strategy, talk about some differences between the site, things you can look for. And it's something everyone can certainly use, beginners, moderate players or even professional players, people that do this full time, I think can get a lot out of it. So that's at 2:00 and it'll be posted. It'll be live, I believe, and then it will be posted on our YouTube channel. So you can go back and watch it whenever you want.
Yep. So be sure to check that out. It's going to be awesome. So you can always go back and watch those videos. It's something that I'll probably watch. I remember watching the PGA show and you can always learn from it. Even if you're someone who's, I've played DFS for so long, I'm so good. You can always be learning and remembering. I always remember at the start of seasons, right? Start of NBA season, NBA is winding down now, but I was kind of thinking about the other day, gosh, once the NBA season starts back up, I'm sure I'll forget something that I used to do every single day. And it's just things you got to learn. And it's good to just get, up to date on that. So be sure to check out that show. I'll go through the show schedule for this week on the Mangone and Friends show, however you want to call it. I'll have all the midgets with me. I'll have Bruce. He'll be there. We're talking Tuesday. Me and him, we're doing the NFL draft. So we're going to talk about just different football stuff. No DFS really. We'll talk some betting stuff. I can mention some of the bets that maybe I get on as well as I'm kind of looking into it a little bit more. So he'll be breaking that down. We did the college football stuff throughout the year. He knows all these players really well. So yeah, we'll be doing that on Tuesday. Wednesday, Hoop is going to be back. We're going to kind of just build a golf player pool for my, MME stuff. So I typically like to throw 50 teams in that $5. So we'll just do that and kind of build out a player pool. Should be fun. Then after that, we'll do on Thursday, we have day baseball. So that'll be with DC. And then Friday, it'll be the Thursday after the draft. So we'll bring JSU to come on and just talk about, what some of the teams did. He knows these teams so well. One of the most knowledgeable guys in football. So we'll be talking about that. So that'll be kind of this week's show schedule. So be sure to tune in all of the days for that. Hoop, let's talk a little bit about hitting. I know we talked about the pitchers a little bit, so we'll discuss some of the hitting and then we'll kind of get on out of here. You kind of already mentioned at the top, there's just not a lot to love. So
no.
Who do you think becomes the chalkiest team? Let's start there. What's the team that everyone gravitates towards? I don't know if it's the Dodgers because of their price tags being so expensive and there not being a lot of pitching. Maybe it can work. Maybe you can go a Berrios and one of the studs at the top, and then you jam in your big offense. What's your kind of thoughts on that?
think the most popular ends up being the Phillies because the slate does start a little bit early. We are for sure going to have their lineup. We might not have the Dodgers. It's definitely between the Phillies and the Dodgers. I think it's probably, yeah, I'm going to say the Phillies.
I think it could be the Astros, mainly because.
Well, I will say with the Astros, as we've been talking, that total did come up. So maybe I'm assuming that probably means they are going to have the roof open tonight because that total came up, I believe, a half a point, if not a full point. So
their prices are just really good, right? Like that's, I think if you look at the Phillies prices and the Dodgers, like Dodgers, you have how many guys above? So Mookie Betts is 4.9, Freeman 5.3, Turner 5.5, Muncy 5.1. I mean, your catcher Will Smith 4.7, which is an expensive tag. You do have a lot of the big bats are basically over 5K. And then on the Phillies, Segura's 4.7, Hoskins 5.1, Harper 5.9, Castellanos 5.3, Real Muto 5.1, Schwarber 5.4. And then on the Astros, the thing at least I noticed when I was looking at stuff, Pena's 4.8. Brantley, if he's in the 2 holes, 3.5. I know it's not a sexy play, but salary relief. Bregman, 4.7. Alvarez, 5.5. The only bat above 5K. Gurriel, if he's in there, 3.6. Tucker at 4.1.
That's a good price on Tucker. 4.1 is a great price for Tucker.
Yeah, insane price on him there. That. My lean is the Astros end up being it, but I kind of think those are the 3, and it might get spread out enough where I don't think you're going to see an offense at 40%. You know what I mean? I think we've had some of those slates, but I don't think it's one of those slates today. Do you agree or disagree?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the key is going to find I think those 3 clearly stand out. Who's the 4th? Who's the 4th offense side? And that's the big question because, if you're building multiple teams, you can't just play those 3. You need, other options. Can the, Guardians, can Cleveland get to Lorenzen, who had one really good start and then one really bad start? I think the Indians are an interesting team tonight. Because of, the matchup with Lorenzen. I mean, not many people are playing them. I think they're a team that could be interesting. I obviously have to dig more. That Mets Cardinals game, I don't want any offense in that game. 6.5 total. That stadium sucks for hitting. Temperature still in the 50s. No, thank you. Toronto will get some ownership just because it's Toronto and their offense is strong enough to beat anybody. The Brewers are such a difficult team to put money behind, so frustrating from a DFS standpoint.
They're cheap though, right?
They are cheap, and they can make a ton work.
That's the key. I think so. When you were thinking of the 4th offense, my first thought was who are the cheaper bats that can kind of get you there that are above that 4 implied total, and the Rangers I don't think are a bad one. I think because you can also see that total go up and people, sometimes they like the game stack stuff up. And if you got a lefty in there, I know Valdez isn't bad, but Adolis Garcia at 3.4 feels like a cheap tag, and Nick Solak at 3.1. There's definitely cheap options that you can put in there, like Garver at 4.3 at catcher. People love putting catchers in there sometimes. Semien at 4.2 feels like he could be at a 5K tag almost every slate, and him being at 4.2 feels like a decently cheap option. But those Brewers tags, the ones that I'm noticing, if McCutcheon's in the 1 hole at 3.3, right?
Yeah,
that's pretty intriguing.
Tag.
Yelich, even though it's a lefty, 4.3 is still a cheap price tag for the name of Christian Yelich. Renfro at 3.4 in the 4 hole.
Renfro, that's a great one. 3.4. Yeah, these are some crazy price tags. You're right.
Keston Herrera, 3.1. You can put him at second base. Lorenzo Cain, 2.8. I mean, that's a cheap outfield. Yeah. They don't have Braves price tags, but similarities to it. And Brousseau's another guy. He's 2.6 is a pure punt at a third base or a shortstop if you want. And then I'm trying to think of who's going to be that catcher for the Brewers. If it's Caratini, he's been decent if you look at his game logs, and he's only 2.7 where people might make it part of the 3-man where they do Caratini, McCutcheon, and Renfro, right? Where it's the 9, the 1, and you get the cleanup hitter. I could see that totally on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, really good price. I mean, if you're going to double pay at pitcher, I guess this is a team you're probably going to be forced to look at. They've just been so frustrating for me. I will play them tonight. I will have exposure to them, but man, they've been a frustrating team to start the season so far. But yeah, it's an interesting slate. Like I said, it is 6 p.m. Eastern or 6:10 Eastern on DK, and FanDuel for some reason whacked out these first 2 games and created only a 5-game slate. So you have that staggered start time, which is nice to give you some extra time to build teams.
Yeah, actually, I guess let's do this. Let's look at FanDuel real quick if you want, and just see if there's anything that sticks out. Because I know one thing, Coop. There's a live final tomorrow or today,
Yeah.
and it's a decent one, right? The $44. So like, it feels like a lot of people can get in if they want to, right? It's not those like big like, oh, you got to spend 1K to get into. So if you want to take your shot, right? I know, Coop. Do you already have a ticket to one of these yet, or no? Are you not?
Do not. No, I don't.
All right. Well, I'm sure you'll find a way to get there. I'm sure there'll be one of our guys there, right? I'm sure someone will be. I don't even know if JC's already booked for the DK one, but let's see if there's anything interesting with pitching, because pitching's been way better on FanDuel. I'll say that. They've done better with their pricing. Barrios, who we talked about on DK, he's cheap. He's 7.8. I see Bueller's at 9.4. I don't know. I feel like I'll just grab Max Scherzer and move on a lot of my teams. Maybe I'm going to play 3 to 5. I haven't decided how many I'm going to play on FanDuel yet. But like, I feel like I'm gonna grab Scherzer for sure, and then maybe I'll grab like a Barrios or 2. I'm not sure. What's your kind of thoughts here on the pitching?
Hard not to just go to the top here. I mean,
that's how I feel.
Merrill Kelly at 9.8. Like, yeah, we talked about Merrill Kelly. I'm not playing Merrill Kelly at 9.8 when Bieber is 10K and then Scherzer is 10.8. So he's immediately out. Bueller, like we talked about, like he's too close to those guys at the top tier. Not going there. And then Barrios, he has a basement price on DK at 5.5. 7.8 is still cheap. And if I am going cheap, I guess he would probably be the option by default. But we're talking a 5-game MLB slate. Like, there's just not a ton of options. Majority of my teams will be, Scherzer or Bieber, and you're going to be able to fit those guys in there pretty easily. Let me just pull up the hitting pricing just to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's cheap price tags on hitters too.
You should see the Astros. It's horrible.
They're all under 3.5. Yeah, like you could. Yeah, there's no need to you just pay up for pitcher today on even if the Dodgers. Look at the Dodgers. I mean,
yeah, they're not like too hard to get in. Like the two key ones that stick out to me are Muncy at 3.2, and who's the other one that stuck out? There was one more.
Justin Turner.
Yeah, those are like the two that really stuck out to me on the Dodgers.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there.
Yeah, so definitely, and I think catcher. Well, I should look at catcher first base just to see, because sometimes there's guys like lurking down there. Like, you never know who's going to be in there. Like, is it like if a Rios or a Barnes like sneaks in the lineup out of nowhere instead of like a Will Smith at the catcher position? Yeah. You just don't know. So that sometimes can shake some stuff up. But FanDuel looks like it's fun today too. Nice little 5-game slate. 6:10 is when it locks for the what's it called? The DK slate. So be sure to check that out. Hoop, you got that show coming up, so that'll be at 2:00. Is that a live show, Hoop? Do you know if that's live?
I believe it'll be live. I'm fairly certain it's live. If not, it will be posted like immediately after. But fairly certain that is going to be live. Our producer can verify that, but I believe it's live.
All right, cool. Well, we'll update the schedule for sure. Be sure to come back for that. Then we got 4:45, the MLB Swing for the Fences show, so don't miss out on that. And then the Up to Lock show at 6:00 for the NBA slate. And then, then the week gets rolling, right? Tuesday, the golf stuff starts up. Tuesday, Wednesday, we'll have NFL draft as well this week. There's a lot going on this week. So go sign up at Run Pure Sports if you have not. Check out SaberSim as well. Use that optimizer. We'll be obviously talking about that and how it's valuable in the videos that we do today. So be sure to check all that out. That is going to wrap it up for the MLB review and the, basically main slate breakdown. Just a little first look for you guys before the show, but that is going to wrap it up for us, guys. Thanks a lot for joining us. For me, Mangone, and Hoop, we will see you guys later.